Thanks very much for the invitation to present this. So my name's David Tomlinson. I'm a cardiologist from Derriford Hospital in Plymouth. And essentially I've got to try and do the impossible. So tell you just in a couple of minutes what the poster proves about the underlying mechanisms for the heterogeneity of radiofrequency ablation effect at the posterior wall of the left atrium in vivo. So I'm not going to start from that complicated point. What I'm going to start from is a standpoint of clinicians that have always impressed me at work have been those that every single day they come into work, they're trying to improve what they do. They're trying to learn from what they do. And we know that when it comes to the environment in which we operate, the way to learn most effectively is to have a really data-rich environment and a uniform environmental behaviour. So that may seem a very strange position to start from, but it does apply to the standpoint of doing an ablation. If you operate and have no means of identifying actually what you did, no means of identifying what the catheter tissue interaction was, you do a succession of ablation procedures, however stable the operating environment, and a year later someone comes back fixed, but another patient comes into clinic, is not fixed, and you've got no means of ever working out why the ablation was unsuccessful. So that's the basic idea as to why I've done a succession of pieces of work using the VisiTag module, so a radiofrequency annotation software module, just as a recording tool. So the idea is that I come into work, I record what I do in great detail with a great richness of data in a stable operating environment. So it provides the platform for me for the first time to learn what I need to do to deliver a better ablation. So other people have shown that there is a greater ablation effect on the left side of the left atrial posterior wall. There's independent lines of evidence, some CMR-based evidence, and some, similar to this, annotation-based evidence showing that there's a greater ablation effect on the left side of the left atrial posterior wall. I'm stressing that because not many people are aware of that, and yet the esophagus disproportionately tends to lie towards the left side of the left atrial posterior wall, and everyone's worried about atrioesophageal fistula, quite rightly, as a complication from AF ablation. The left atrial wall thickness is pretty much uniform left and right side. There's slight variation towards the carenas, but the left atrial wall is no thicker on the left side of the heart, so there's no reason on God's earth that I need to ablate deeper on the left-hand side than on the right, particularly when the esophagus is more likely to be on the left-hand side. So I'm going to try and keep what I say about this very superficial, but in essence, I've been able to adopt a homogeneous operating environment stability. So, for example, by operating on a patient under general anaesthesia and with atrial overdrive pacing, instead of operating essentially in an earthquake of random tidal volume and random RR intervals of atrial ectopy that otherwise would be the case under sedation, I create, as stable as I can, a platform of cardiac contractility and respiratory motion in relation to the intermittent positive pressure ventilation. So I've tried to eliminate one variable towards possible catheter tissue interaction effects. Here's where I can't do anything other than kind of wave my hand around about whether the catheter and the tissue are moving in phase or they're moving out of phase as the patient takes a breath. So I use a contact force filter. That means I can never have movement in the Z-axis to have 0 grams contact force. So I always have some movement, we inevitably do, in the XY plane. But I'm trying to control, for the effect of respiration, movement in the XY axis by eliminating all respiratory motion through jet ventilation. So basically what I've shown is that even with jet ventilation, you still have a greater radiofrequency ablation effect on the left-hand side of the left atrial posterior wall. And somewhat crazily, this is even when adopting a 30% lower power reduction on the left side of the left atrial posterior wall, so 20 watts versus 30 watts on the right side. Now, I've probably said too much already for most people, but in the next week or so, there should be a link available to this on the medRxiv website. So just the final thing I'll say before I talk about the conference, which is great, is medRxiv is a resource for medics to release research to a wider audience on an open platform for rapid dissemination of new science, for development of manuscripts, to improve the quality of a manuscript before journal submission. So I'm very passionate about data being open and for people to enhance my paper, because who am I to say that any paper I do would be perfect in its first iteration? Anything but. I want the EP community to interact with any paper that I do as a live document to make it as good as it possibly can be before it's in print somewhere, hopefully. But coming back to the conference, so HRC is the premier conference for UK EPs, and I'm extremely grateful to have been given the opportunity of presenting in abbreviated form the work that I've done. So thank you very much.